Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's Sheikah here, back again with another Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity video. So today is going to be the final character guide, unless we get some DLC in the future. I'm not too sure if we're going to get that though. But today we'll look at the last character we have yet to cover, which is the Great Fairies. The Great Fairies are really weird and clunky to play as at first, but once you learn their moveset and master all their hidden mechanics, their damage output is absolutely broken. Opening up the attack menu though, here we can see all of their possible attack combos and abilities, and as always I'll be going over what each of these do, as well as show you some hidden mechanics they don't tell you on the screen. Before we start though, since I know that most of you don't watch all the way to the end, I just want to take some time out here in the intro to thank everyone for all the support they've been showing for this series and the channel, as the channel has seen some crazy growth since I started making these Age of Calamity videos. You guys have been absolutely amazing and super active in the comments as well as in the channel polls, and seeing all the positive comments and feedback always made my day and kept me motivated to make these type of videos. I also want to thank everyone for your patience in me making these character guides. I know it's been over a month and a long time since the game came out, and although I'm pretty late on covering some of these characters, you guys have been consistently still watching all of these videos and showing support, so again, thank you. Sometime next week I'll probably make a tier list to put a nice little bow in the character guide series, and so I can share all my thoughts on all these characters in a single video, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But now that all that's out of the way, let's get this video started by going over the basic abilities. Alright, so to start this section off, I'll go over both of her dash attacks. The first one is done by pressing Y while sprinting, and this will make the Great Fairies pop out of their pod and do damage to all nearby enemies. The second dash attack is done by sprinting and pressing X. For this dash attack, the Great Fairies will poke one of their arms out from their pod and swipe at the enemies in front of them, and then keep on running afterwards. The Great Fairy's strong attack is done by pressing X, and this one's pretty simple, as I'll just send them into a shoulder bash forwards. This attack is actually pretty quick and is around the same speed, but just a little tad slower than their normal dodge. The Great Fairy's unique action is an attack that will change depending on which fairy is currently out of the pod, and each time you use their unique action, the fairies will swap out with a different one. The purple-haired fairy will spawn some amaranths around her, as well as create a huge shield around her to protect her from any incoming damage. The shield will completely absorb and negate all damage taken from one attack, and if you enhance her ability, it can absorb up to 2 attacks. The pink-haired fairy will spawn some flowers behind her and then shoot them super far forwards, dealing huge damage to all enemies. The white-haired fairy will spawn 2 fields of various Saflinas around her that will damage enemies when they sprout up, and finally, the blonde fairy will spawn 2 series of blue nightshades that will also damage enemies when they sprout. But additionally here, the second series of blue nightshades that sprout will also lower enemy defenses for around 14 to 15 seconds. And you can see what enemies have this, as it'll turn slightly blue and have like a little particle effect around them. And finally, this defense drop can stack multiple times. Each time you reapply it to the enemy, this timer will refresh. So one thing that's really important to remember about the Great Fairy's unique action is you can actually dodge cancel at the end of the attack animation to keep the Great Fairy from switching out. This will help if you want to keep spamming a certain unique action like the pink-haired fairy's attack or the blonde fairy's defense drop effect. Also, not really related to the unique action, but keep in mind that every time you sprint around and go back into your pod, the fairy will automatically switch out. So make sure to keep this in mind if you're trying to keep a specific fairy out. Next up, we have some of their weak point smash animations, which have no special effects outside of their damage output, but I do notice here that their weak point smash has a pretty big AoE and does some good damage for all the enemies around the boss. And finally for this section, the Great Fairy's special attack will have all fairies pop out into separate pods surrounding a small area. Then they'll kiss all the enemies in the area, doing huge damage to them, as well as some damage to other enemies that are close by to their pods.
Witness my splendor. Such a pity.
Alright, moving on to the Sheikah Runes now. First we'll go over their Cryonis. So for their Cryonis, the Great Fairies will spawn a huge ice block under them. Then they'll sit on top of the Cryonis block for a few seconds before they smash it with their hands and break it.
Chilling, no.
For the Bomber, the Great Fairies will go back into their pod, and then you'll be given the option to spam the Y button to shoot bombs out of the pod that will land slightly in front of the Great Fairies. Wherever this bomb lands will cause an explosion chain forward that goes a pretty far distance, and you can aim this by moving the left stick, which will rotate the pod slightly. And finally, you can also press B to end the attack early and do a finisher move where you have to shoot one last bomb and then pop out of their pod. For Magnesis, the Great Fairies will absorb all nearby metal objects into their pod, then they'll shoot them out in 2 separate projectiles. You can aim a little bit by moving the left stick. These projectiles will damage all enemies in their path as well as expose weak point gauges on bosses. And finally, for stasis, the Great Fairies will freeze themselves as well as all enemies in a wide area in front of them. Then you can choose to charge the Great Fairies while they're standing in the stasis by spamming the X button. Then once the stasis is broken, depending on how much you charge it will send the Great Fairies flying forward, damaging all enemies that are in their path. You can tell how much you charge the stasis by looking at the color, with yellow denoting little to none, orange being somewhere in the middle, and red being the max. Like most stasis animations, when you press B to cancel out of this charge animation and attack normally. However, if you press X at any time to charge up, instead of cancelling out, it'll make you actually dash forward early.
Ready?
Alright, now moving on to our attack combos now, and the first up will be the 7 Ys combo. The first 4 Y presses will be some basic attacks from the fairies, then for the next 2 Y presses, a second Great Fairy will pop out of the pod and shoot some hard projectiles forwards that damage enemies they touch. Then for the final Y press, both of the fairies will shoot a series of hearts out that you can aim around by moving the left stick. And then as a finisher, they'll pop all the hearts, doing some extra damage to nearby enemies. I believe at the end of the last Y press, actually have to repeatedly press Y there to get the full animation, or else you won't get all the hearts to spawn, as well as they won't be popping them at the end too. Also, one last thing to note is that the Great Fairy that's out of the pod and attacking will also change 2 times during this whole combo, once on the 3rd Y press and then 1 at the end. Our second combo is going to be the YX combo. For this combo, one of the fairies will do a quick swipe, and then followed by a strong attack and she shoots out 3 pink blast forwards out of her hand. The last strong attack does a pretty good amount of damage as well as a really good range, making it a really powerful and quick combo too. Combo 3 is the YYX combo. For this combo, one of the fairies will do 2 swipes, and then for the strong attack, a second fairy will pop out of the pod and help shoot a heart projectile forward that will explode. Then once that whole attack animation is over, the second Great Fairy will take over and the one you originally had will go back into the pod.
So soon?
For the 4th combo, the Great Fairy will again do a series of swipes for the regular attacks, and like in combo 1 on the 3rd Y press, the fairies will switch out. Then for the strong attack X press, the Moon Fairy will blow out some magic dust at her enemies you can aim around by using the left stick. Combo number 5 is the 4 Ys and X combo. Again, here all the Y presses have the same effects as combo 1, and for the final X press, you'll have a second fairy pop out and they'll create a small whirlwind around their pod that will suck in all enemies. And then once all the enemies are inside their pod, they'll damage them a few times and spit them back out. The strong attack at the end is a pretty big AoE and affects a lot of enemies within a wide area. It also works on bosses, even the bigger ones like Guardians, Hyloxes, and Taluses, and also sometimes expose the weak point gauge. And our last combo is the combo number 6, which is the 5 Ys and X combo. Again, all the Ys are the same from combo 1, and the strong attack here at the end will have all the Great Fairies go back into their pod but leave it open. You are then able to move this open pod around and use the Y to make a Great Fairy pop out for an attack, or press X for a finisher. I believe this attack is on a timer that starts after using your first attack and it lasts around 7 to 8 seconds. Then whenever this timer runs out, you will automatically use the finisher, and lastly, the strong attack also swap out your fairy whenever it's over. Now it's time for the last section of the video and the entire series where we'll go over some basic strategies and combat tips. So first off, we'll start off with my weapon build, and my plan for the Great Fairies here is to throw all attack speeds on their primary weapon. Their attack speed is super slow, and since they're so big, they can get knocked out of combos pretty frequently, so adding all the attack speeds here can help limit that and also get off combos a little bit faster. However, this combination will only get us the plus 15 damage increase as we will be matching all the hidden seals. If you want a plus 20, I'd recommend just switching out one of the attack speeds with the strong attack damage to get the match. Moving on now to some basic strategies and tips, and we have quite a few this time since the Great Fairies probably have the hardest learning curve and weirdest mechanics in comparison to all the other characters. My first tip here is that fast way to swap out the fairies. What you want to do for this is sprint until the pod closes, then press B to check the fairy that comes out. If it's the fairy you don't want, press B again once to go back into the sprint, and then just repeat this process until the fairy you need comes out. The key here though is to make sure when you go back into your sprint that the pod closes completely, or else the fairies won't swap. Getting the fairy you want is important for this next strategy, which is to cancel out their unique action and keep spamming a certain Great Fairy's attack. I feel like this is most important for the blonde one and the pink haired one, since the pink haired one's flower attack is pretty broken and can be used from such a far distance, helping you to easily avoid taking damage. But even more broken than that is the blonde haired one, since if you remember earlier, unique action will apply a defense drop that stacks, so you can absolutely abuse this if combining the unique action with the stasis. If you do it right, just keep spamming this, you'll be able to get a couple defense drops on a boss, and if you want to see how absolutely broken this strategy is, here's a clip of me beating Ganon in like 10 seconds just solely using her unique action and stasis.
Let's move. Finished already.
So as you can see from that clip there, the strategy is easily the most broken strategy in the game so far, so I recommend you try to learn it and get good at it if you want to play the Great Fairies. And that strategy is probably the main strategy you want to use for taking on bosses. For taking over outposts though, I think that combo 5 makes outposts an absolute joke as well. It can suck in to damage almost all enemies within an outpost, as well as the ability to expose weak point gauge on the boss, making clearing outposts with the Great Fairies pretty easy. Other combos that are pretty good at that if you don't have your combo 5 yet are the combos 1, 2, and 3. For bosses, I mainly recommend using that unique action to stasis strategy, but if you don't feel like doing that, I would recommend either using combo 6 for this since it exposes weak point gauges and you also just spam the strong attack multiple times. I would also recommend using combo 4 as well once those weak point gauges are exposed, as the boss is stunned to help drain it. Overall though, I think that the Great Fairies are really powerful and absolutely broken character when in the right hands and used by the right players. Like I already said, they're really hard to learn at first. Once you get good at utilizing all of their abilities and attacks, especially dodge cancelling that unique action, they can be absolute powerhouses. Their damage output is insane, and if you combine that with the strats we went over in this video, I think they're easily a top tier character. But personally, while I do recognize how powerful they are, I don't really like to choose them over most other characters. They're really big and slow, making them hard to avoid taking damage with, and even though they have some broken strats to use, I don't find them fun or really enjoyable to use. Also, something really annoying about them is that since they're really huge, they can easily clog up hallways or doors when you're using other characters, making them really annoying to have on your team if you don't plan on using them for most of the mission. But that's just my opinion though. Let me know what you guys think about the Great Fairies in the comments below. Also, feel free to share any strategies or tips you may have for the Great Fairies, or let me know if there's anything in the moveset I may have missed. That's going to end the video for today though guys. That was the entire moveset for the Great Fairies. Again, I just want to say thank you for all the support shown in the series, as well as the support you guys have been showing the channel for the last couple of months. I really appreciate each one of you, and you guys keep me motivated to try and make content as much as I can. And like I said in the intro, I'm probably going to make a tier list on the characters probably sometime this week, so make sure to stay tuned for that. I'm not really sure the exact date it'll come out, but I'll try to get it out as soon as I can. But if you guys watched the video and found it helpful, please make sure to leave a like. I'd like to thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.